Resume.
It's 5:31, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Second, consider any agenda adjustments, are there any?
Yeah, I'd like to add a new number 8, after number 7, proclamation regarding Eric Dodge Day. And then the rest of the items would just become one number. 8 to 10 would become 9 to 11. And because we're adding an agenda item that you vote on, you have to vote to add it. And we need to move to add that to the agenda. I will move that we add the Eric Dodge.
Motion's been made. And seconded, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Next, minutes, approving the minutes for the June 7th, 2023 meeting.
All abstain. Nothing.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. None, ayes have it, with one abstain. Next is check register approval.
I had a question on that. Pratt and Smith Electrical. Yeah,
That's the generator at well.
the only thing I had.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve check register.
It's been made and seconded. Any discussions? All those in favor of approving the check register, say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Next, authorization of lien on 205 Center Road, Morristown.
This happens occasionally when we can't get payment, and so when the take it requires the trustees to authorize us to have a lien placed. Did you shut the power off? Shut the water off too? Yeah. We just need an authorization to do it from here. We can place the lien. Motion to authorize the lien.
Motion's been made,
Second.
then seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the authorization of lien on 205 Center Road, Morristown, say aye. Ayes have it. Moving on, special project requests and approval.
So special projects in your packet, you've got a bunch of information, most of it, is about things you knew about. You asked some questions about the project, the project down on the kiosk along the rail trail, and about the, what was gonna get installed at the library if they did their project. And then in the intervening time, they right away asked for some funding to put up some snow protection from people who were walking back and forth along their property. So the information is in there. Which property was talking about? 110 Portland. Port Street goes down towards the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, they've owned that property for probably 10 years.
Yeah, so they're in the process of rehabbing it to move their offices there. And I asked them, which you see in the packet, I asked them, because it's along their south facing side, which is not public facing. And they said they're working out an easement with the new low income housing property to make that a public walkway back and forth. And so, but that's also the way that the snow comes off the roof. I told them that you were pretty dialed in on 2 projects already and that they came in after that. So my guess was that you were gonna focus on the 2 projects that were already in front of you. But that if they wanted to submit, they of course could submit, because it's really up to you. And there's nothing in your rules that says just because they came in after that you can't have them compete with the others. So just to be clear with you, so you've got 3 in front of you. The amount of money that's available for all this is in the memo. Obviously we're way oversubscribed. You had talked a little bit about possibly using some of the funds this year. You hadn't resolved that by any stretch of the imagination, but some of you had talked about that. So I would say if we're just gonna spend the funds out of the, that are available from the special projects, you know, and that's a pretty clean motion, however you wanna do it. And if you think you're gonna also do Amy Wade, I would just ask for two separate motions, so that we know how much you're spending out of special projects and how much you're spending out of Amy Wade. All of which is within your authority to do.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to fully fund the library kids' placements.
I'd second that.
Motion been made, seconded. All in favor of approving the kids' play space for the library? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it.
So how much we have left?
So when you say fully fund.
It's gotta be,
So
$100.
okay.
So we got what, 4,300?
And Did you already do it?
No. Gonna jump in.
6840, is that right? Yeah, 6840.52. You don't have to spend that, you could partially fund one of the other projects.
How much was it?
I come up, is that right, 6840.52?
6840, I mean, we only had 13,000.
Right, you just
We
spent
spent
7100.
7,100, okay.
Yep.
I was looking at the 11,000. Okay. I make a motion, we spend the balance. The number Scott just gave on the rail trail beautification.
Second.
Are we gonna do Amy Wade for the rest, or just give that,
I'll just,
just give what we have left, is that what we're talking?
I'll leave it alone for now too,
Yeah.
because, you know, this isn't a beautification project.
Yeah, okay, that should have been up for the discussion, so let me go back up, so motion been made to approve the balance. For the rail trail beautification,
Does that include the following?
that's already been, is that
That's already been approved.
been taken out of it?
Oh, we have to take 470 off of that number, so
Okay,
you're
so-
right, so it's 470 less. Sorry. about
So
that.
that's still, the motion's still correct, because it's the balance.
470.52,
Okay,
that's the number.
yeah, that's, we seconded, right? I
What
seconded,
motion
yeah.
been made and seconded,
Yeah, I second that.
all in
If the
favor,
pollinators didn't take it. Okay.
Yep.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, moving on, authorization to establish a line of credit.
What we're looking for here, you know, we talked about this last time about the results of our rate case, that we need to start putting some other things in place so we can pay our short-term bills, right? And so we've talked through like 5 different options in the last couple of meetings. What's clear is that one of the things we need to do is be able to get cash flow to balance out the year. Power supply costs tend to be a front of the year cost. So we have these accounts payable that are bigger than the rates are bringing in. And then they tend to balance out the rest of the year. It's funny, when power supply gets really expensive, it actually helps us because we buy lower and sell what's left, because we have more power than we need sometimes. And so it actually helps balance the year out. So we have this inequity. So like most businesses do, it just means we find ourselves in a place where having a line of credit would be really helpful. So what we need to do that is, I think I put a draft motion in the packet. So that, you know, essentially in most cases, and we've checked around a bit, to get a line of credit, you either go through your existing bank, or if you ask other banks, they'll require you to move your money to them, all your accounts to them. So right now, we've had a long, good standing relationship with the bank. Presuming we can negotiate satisfactory terms, we're really looking for authorization to enter with them at satisfactory terms. So, which is one of the things they require us to have, is an authorization from you in order to do it.
I'll move that. We pursue that.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Ayes have it.
Oh, then we have,
Moving on to the Air Dodge Day.
so we added this agenda item, as you know, I think, the end of this month is the last day that Eric will be town administrator, and, you know, forget about what's all the hoopla in town that's been going on. What we can say as a staff of Morrisville Water and Light is Eric has been just a pleasure to work with. So forget about any of the other stuff. So we decided we thought it'd be fun to have some fun with Eric, as he leaves, and just acknowledge, the good work he's done for the community. And so we did something really corny, came up with a proclamation we're clear in the proclamation that you have no authority to declare a day on anyone's behalf. So obviously it's fantasy and made up and to have fun with. So this proclamation, I think you've all had a chance to read, will declare June 23rd to be Eric Day Dodge in Morrisville. So if you're so inclined, haven't seen this, we'd ask you to authorize that and then I'll sign it. And then either tomorrow or the next day, you know, your chair and I will make a trip down and present him with his proclamation. And then Friday, we'll have some social media fun with Eric and just thank him for the great job he did. And the partnership he's had with the village. So that's what's on the table. That's the proclamation. If you decide to approve it, you can sign it. And we thought we'd have some fun.
The motion,
I'll make a motion to approve the proclamation.
I'll second
motion's been made and seconded, any other discussion? All in favor of approving, Air Dodge Day, say aye. Aye, ayes have it.
Thank you all. I think he's a guy that has a dry sense of humor, so we think he'll actually think it's funny when we give it to him. Who knows? Gotta have some fun once in a while, right?
Absolutely, I think it's good, it's good.
And Kevin is the guy that knows how to create these fancy proclamations. He and Trustee and I collaborated on the language, but he's the guy who knows how to make it all pretty.
I could have Photoshop a picture or something that's.
Thank you all for that.
Okay, moving on to other business. Jersey Heights Pump Station Preliminary Engineering Report.
Great, so we've got Wayne Elliott with us from Aldrich and Elliott, who is the author of the report, and we've spoken with you at meetings before about the fact that we need to replace that pump station, and it's in our budget process, we approved it, and so, you know, we had gone out to bid, to begin to solicit an engineering firm. We pulled that back because we made some errors in the solicitation process. And so we don't have anything on the street right now. We will be going back out on that soon. But in the meantime, you know, the preliminary engineering report, not the final design, not what will become the final basis, but that is done. And so we thought it'd be good to put that in front of you, give Wayne a couple minutes to explain the findings about, you know, what needs to happen when we replace that pump station. We'll need to approve the report. That is a preliminary report in nature. So we wanted to put that in front of you and just make sure you're aware that we're progressing and that leads us, once we do go forward with this, by going through the process we're going through, it enables us to get some state money to help pay for the engineering bills as we go forward. So it's all a good process for us. So we've got Wayne here to kind of do a quick presentation here about what's in the report. Well, you know.
What do you want me here anyways?
I think that everybody, well, there's no one online, so
Okay.
everybody can see
Alright,
if they do join.
All right, I'll do the abbreviated version. I know it's a nice night here, so. So interesting, you know, we've worked with the village for quite a few years. I actually worked on the treatment plant upgrade. I looked back, I heard of believe that's like 12 years ago already. So the study, we started this back in early October. The village funded it, out of your sewer budget, and the two objectives really to look at this were twofold. It was age related and also capacity. Parts of that pump station were built back in the early 1970s, so It's 50+ components or 50+ years old, and you've got your useful life out of many of the parts and pieces there. One of the things we did with the report, which is why it's set up and reads this way, is we set this up so what the state clean water program requires, we follow their template, all the information is here. So this is all set up, we provided a copy to them, and it sets the village up to really tap into the clean water, the state funding as you move forward for the next phase of the design and also the construction phase. I'll just go kind of very briefly hit the highlights here. Have a project planning, we spent a lot of time documenting the existing conditions, the age of what you have here. Work closely with Kevin and John and tap into their knowledge, and what we're trying to do is really document the need. A lot of this, as I said, was really age related. You have an existing dry pit structure that we crawled down into that has an antiquated lift. It's over 20 feet deep. You know, it's 25 years old, so you've got your useful life and then some out of it. The village has been proactive in a couple areas. You've installed a sewage grinder there within the last 4 or 5 years, and also installed a new generator transfer switch. So we're planning on reusing those components that are there. The other part of this, which is really important, is that part of your sewer service area is seeing an incredible amount of growth here and will continue over the next few years. What we do to assess the capacity of the existing pump station is we look at each pump. Kevin and John shared the run times on that. And basically you're running at about 77,000 gallons per day. We then extend that out using a peaking factor to a peak flow condition. And we've concluded that you're using about 90% of the capacity of one pump in that peak flow condition, which is designed for 250 gallons per minute. So that obviously provides the basis of the need and all the projects that are pending and approved here over the next few years for the capacity increase. What we did working with the town is we got some numbers then. We got 2 of the projects that were identified that had been approved, so we folded those in. Looked at the design flows of that. That tends to be a little bit conservative because you have to use the state numbers at the 210 gallons per day per unit. The reality is once they get connected and they become part of your actual flow in the system, it's quite a bit less than that. So there's some conservatism built into that. We're recommending that you increase the pump capacity from 250 to 350 gallons per minute, and that more than covers these projects that are currently approved. The challenge that you have there with that station moving forward long term is the size of the force main, the pipe that takes the flow from the pump station to the top of the hill that's under pressure is going to be too small at some point. It's currently 6-inch. So we can only go so far with increasing the pump capacity size horsepower. We just kind of hit a wall there at some point. So you have to be, it's a balance because we want to make sure you're set up for the future for what you need there. But we also want to make sure we're not over designing something where you're not going to need this capacity for the next, 15 or 20 years. What's going to have to happen there, and it's going to be driven by how quickly some of this new development that's pending happens. You're going to have to go through the pump station upgrade, and at some point in the future, you're going to have to look at upgrading the size of the pipe of the force main, but probably an 8-inch. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna make everything work at the pump station that you're gonna be constructing, but you're gonna get more capacity because you're gonna get less head loss through that pipe. So that's gonna be another phase down the road. It's not needed now. It doesn't make any sense to do that, but that's really kind of the phased approach moving forward. We looked at 3 different alternatives for this situation for the upgrade. We looked at trying to retrofit, we use a lot of these existing structures. So we wanted to do that, but again, you have a steel structure that's 20+ feet in the ground with an elevator, very difficult to fix and bring all that stuff up to code. You really got your useful life out of that. Then we looked at it, what we call a submersible pump station, which the village has some of those at other locations. It's really a precast structure that holds the flow. Pumps are set in the liquid. And then we looked at a third type of a pump station, which is a dry pit that sits on top of the wet well. So the pumps are really in a dry, but they're raised up higher. So we looked at those 3 options, and the one that was really more favorable for the village long term was number 2, which is really to stay with a submersible type pump station. you know, they're familiar with that technology at some of these other locations and comfortable with that, so. We're gonna really keep what's there, we're gonna reuse the existing wet well, the existing grinder, we're gonna add a new wet well structure adjacent to that, that's gonna house the pumps, we're gonna do a small building up top. That's gonna help hold the control panels, to limit kind of the confined space entry stuff. We're gonna plan to reuse the existing generator, transfer switch, and put a valve pit, so. That's really the approach there for the upgraded pump station, we're gonna design those pumps to get you to 350 gallons per minute over the 250 that you currently have. Proposed projects, so that really includes kind of the overall upgrades there, or what's proposed. We also outlined the permitting requirements, the schedule's kind of a little bit behind, as Scott mentioned. One of the things to qualify to use the state clean water SRF funds is you have to go through this qualifications-based selection process. It's not fee-based, it's just qualifications. The village has to go through that process, select a consultant. Then what happens is we put a draft engineering services contract together, it goes to the state, a review approval. The good news when you also do that is the village qualifies for 50% subsidy on the engineering. The other thing with that too is a application was submitted back in February. To get on the state project list for funding, which Scott mentioned, so we're still waiting, it's a little bit behind, but we're kind of waiting to see how that looks. Just trying to make sure we keep all the options open for the village on the funding side here moving forward. Total project cost here is, which includes everything, we carry a 15% construction contingency. Environmental, this is really set up to use a state funded project, but we're looking at about $1,070,000. About 75–80% of this construction. We do a lot of pump stations, so we're kind of putting these numbers, we just opened a very similar pump station upgrade bids on a project at Morrisville Vermont, actually a little bit more work than this one, so we got some good numbers to work with. But that's kind of the range that you're really looking for. Ideally, you know, one of the reasons we're trying to push this along is you're really pushing the capacity of that existing pump station, and also you got a lot of stuff in there that's really kind of aged out. You got your useful life, so there's concerns about reliability. We're trying to accelerate things as much as we can because of the supply chain issues. You know, you need to get through the design process. There's some permitting things that happen. We're still seeing, you know, controls, variable frequency drives, some of that stuff out of year. So, you know, if we're talking about moving this forward even today, you know, we need 6 months for engineering design, gotta put it out to bid. You know, this isn't really complete and functional best case until, you know, roughly the end of next year, even the following year. So that's kind of the reason to try to move this along, because the criticality of the capacity and also the age-related items here, so. That's a very abbreviated version. Anybody got any questions? Yeah.
On your projected development, where did you get those numbers?
We got those from town. So I can go through, these are basically, if Scott, I'm sure would be glad to share the report here. We've got that information summarized.
Oh, I read it. The only thing I'll get excited about is my name's on there.
Yeah.
For 200 units.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna happen,
Okay.
mainly because I already sold it. And somebody has a permit to build 100 units,
Okay.
so you can probably reduce that down to 100.
Okay.
He talked to Todd, he permitted that land.
Okay.
Right.
He's the one I think that gave us the numbers.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah.
I think if you use all the land, right, even the steep slopes going down to the water and do the density, yeah, you get 200.
Page 11 here, yeah, table 3.2, so we have the Jersey Heights apartments with 200 units and the HA Monash Jersey Way at 54 units. We probably got that, we get that back from him way back in like October, November timeframe.
Yeah, if he did, you know, the number of units per acre and use all the acreage, yeah, you get 200. It's a steep slope and a cliff going to the water, the state will let you build it and look at it. So,
If anything, that's just gonna give you a little bit of a buffer to work with. You know, it's gonna dip into some other pending development, it's just gonna stretch out that capacity a little bit farther. it's not really adding any cost for us to go. It's kind of would be the difference between a pump that can do 300 or 325 gallons per minute versus 350. So pretty subtle this difference there.
Isn't the capacity also based on how much water going into that area? So if everybody there put their water on at once.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be the maximum capacity also? So is that enough? to handle
Yes.
that?
Yep, so that's why, so we took the run times and what we do is figure out what the average flow is. We did it over an entire year. Then what we do is we add, and this is actually written in what the state calls the environmental protection rules, and the peaking factor varies a little bit by the flow range. But in this case, it's about 3.8, so we take that number and multiply it times 3.8, and that gets you to your peak capacity, which you're talking about. That's kind of your worst case scenario,
Right.
where it was raining and it's like in the morning and everybody's off, so. And that's the same thing we designed the treatment plant for. We have your permanent average day capacity, which is at 550,000 gallons per day, but it's actually designed for a peak daily flow and a peak hourly flow. So that's all built in to each of these pump stations and also the treatment plant. So good question, but yeah, that's all factored in, which is how we end up at that higher number. It's 77,000 gallons per day on average, but we end up putting it higher than that for a peak.
That estimate or whatever, of 1,070,000.
Yeah.
That includes all the permits and everything?
That's correct, yeah, that's construction, 15% construction contingency, engineering permits, we carry allowances for legal, administration permit fees, and all that, yeah. That's all an eligible cost, and irregardless if you wanna use, some local funds or go to the state, that's all set up to cover everything for a typical state funded project, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the hope is there's subsidy there too.
You said something about subsidy for the engineering design specifically, that part of that 1 million already figured in, or that's after?
That would be after it comes out, that's the total cost,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
If you did go to a bond vote, one of the things that was changed about 4 or 5 years by statute is you used to have to vote on the total project costs. You don't have to do that anymore, that's gonna be a board decision. Let's say on construction, they came back and you got 25% subsidy, you could back that out of your bond authorization. That's allowed now, that's strictly a board decision when you get to that point, you vote on the total project costs. Or that less the subsidy grants that you could get, so.
How do you deal with the flows while you're doing the work, or how long is, have you
Yeah.
got through that transition?
Yeah, so this was actually set up pretty well, which is kind of the reason we kind of stuck with this approach is, we're gonna leave what's there really functional. We're gonna keep the existing well there, the existing grinder, the controls, the generator, the existing tri-pit. We can leave all that functional and operational. We wouldn't abandon, so the dry pit is the steel structure in the ground where the pumps and the controls are. We're gonna leave that till the very end of the project until all the new pumps and new controls and all that stuff and operate. We're gonna set the new wet well off to the side. We're just gonna connect that to the existing wet well, so it's gonna go to the existing wet well, piped over to the new wet well, so the sequencing works out pretty clean. There would be, very minor bypass pumping and maybe a little bit of a shutdown when you're getting into some of the electrical switch meters for the transfer switch for the generator. But the sequencing here is still gonna be pretty clean. We have the cut in for the force main, so there's be some minor shutdowns, but not anything for extended periods of time.
Do we have a legal right of way to go down there?
To go down
To
where,
the pump, to go down to the pump station?
oh, yeah, we have a road.
What's that?
We have a right, we have.
I know you have the road. I know you have.
It's on our property.
On Alexander's property, you have a legal right of way to get down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I had my project going, I wanted to come down right away. And I couldn't because you didn't have one. I had to go down the street. Past Alexander's property line and then go straight down. Because I couldn't go on Alexander's property on your right away. So you want to check.
Yeah, he doesn't,
Well,
We
can
prefer
show
we
up-
didn't, but it's gonna be a decent road to get down and to do this work, so.
Oh, I know,
He's
but what
asking-
I'm telling you is, I couldn't use the road. Because you didn't have a right to the road.
We'll double check, Bob. We believe we do, but we'll double check.
So so what happens if you use, especially if you use the state clean water fund, that's something we're gonna have to vet out when we get into design engineering. And the state requires what they call a certificate of title to site, so.
See, I had it surveyed,
You did, okay, yeah, so the village is gonna have to have their attorney, look at that.
Make sure you have
Make
your-
sure we get all easements appropriate right away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if we have to remove guardrails and get our own road down in there.
well,
He's not asking.
When I talk to
he's asking
John,
to have a legal right.
talk to John, he knows it.
Yeah, well, I know it's been a contentious point with our neighbor there, but.
Right, well, we got that.
I just don't wanna be all set up to do it, and then you find out you can't.
Absolutely, totally agree.
Good question, we got more of it. Nice to be back in person too, so.
Are both pumps run at the same time, or is it an active passive kind of?
It's an active, they can, so you could get into it, one thing that's interesting there is because of that head, the pumping, the elevation there, you don't get a lot more flow through there, both pumps are running at the same time, it's kind of limiting. But really, those are designed for, each pump should be able to handle that maximum flow condition, and they should be redundant, so if one goes down, the other one should be able to handle the flow. I can tell you there's not always that's the case, but generally that's really what we're designing for, and the assumption is based on that.
You know, the other thing I just want to mention, a few meetings ago, I know we had Kevin show you the SCADA system for water and the one pump station. So at the end of this project, we'll be able to add Jersey Heights pump station to that same SCADA system and be able to manage it remotely. Just so you're also aware of that, that's another nice outcome of upgrading it.
Where does the force main go from there? Kind of just general path, just.
Here, the grist mill used to be, and the creamery building is still standing right down through there. It drains down into a manhole right there, picks up all the flow down Main Street and then makes its way to Tomlinson's. And then under the river and down to the plant.
So it's just pumping from there to the creamery building, the creamery building?
Under the little brook there.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I think Travis is concerned about capacity. We touched on, we have the existing wet well and we'll have another one, so we've got even more capacity for.
Yeah, exactly, it's a good point, you got more operating volume, and the other thing, so because you've got an on-site generator there. That actually meets the storage requirements, because the key thing is you wanna make sure you're providing continuous operation and power outage.
Yeah, Jane?
I did.
Go ahead and state your name and everything.
David Ring. You've spoken a lot about Jersey Heights, and there's been a lot of development out there, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this Jersey Heights pump station picks up everything from the hospital down through. Everything,
Good chunk of it, yeah.
a good chunk of it.
South side of Main
What about
Street.
Joe, what's going on, it's going to go out there, because there's a lot that's going on there now, there's a lot more land up there that could be developed. Now, that would tend to go right downhill, right to your pump station. Can you look at that? Thought of that?
Yeah, those are the discussions with the town about how we get the numbers in here, we're kind of looking to see what the potential growth. That make sure that's built in, so we're not just replacing there, want the same size and capacity, so we do have the growth, we have some additional capacity built in there. Both in pumping capacity and storage, but at some point down the road, depending how quickly that growth happens. The force main is gonna become an limiting factor, so that's either gonna require a second 6-inch. But that's not in the next 4 or 5 years, that's ways down the road.
Right.
So limiting factor won't be the pump, it'll be the force main.
That's
That's
right.
what you're saying.
So you're either having to go from 6-inch to 8-inch, or put a 6-inch into 8 capacity.
And as far as the logistics and that, is that an easier project to do than redoing the pump station? I mean,
It depends if you're in a ledge and you got the river crossing and all that, there's probably
Gotcha.
some difficult constructability
Yeah.
issues too. That's why you don't wanna do it until you really need it, you
Right.
know, and you kinda see how the growth, the development's gonna happen over the next few years, you know. Set in, and that's a sequencing thing, probably what you would do. Well, you got two options, you know, if the existing force main's in decent shape, you could just construct another 6-inch. Side by side, you can actually use both 6-inch force mains, which kind of have the same benefit. Or you could just say, hey, I'm just gonna lay a new 8-inch beside it and just abandon the 6-inch at some point, so.
What's this existing 6-inch main on?
I think it's cast iron, isn't it, Kevin?
We had to repair one.
Yeah, no, we
It's
did.
faster, that's what we do.
Yeah.
The section of it's in that road, A Street or Feline Loop or whatever it's called, and that one of the real cold winters we had expected, so. We had to repair it, put some styrofoam over it. And I think Dave we,
No thoughts up on that budget right now, you've got the money, you've got the engineering, the grants are there, put that in project to get, just blow it right out. And basically drops you back down, takes you all into consideration of your pump stations, like your pumps, like your sizes of your pumps on your well wells. If you put a brand new 8-inch PVC force main in there, you never have a problem. And you get it down there to the depth you want, so you don't freeze it like you did before, because if it froze once, there's a pretty good high probability it'll freeze again. If it does, you're gonna be back in the same situation. No force main, no pumps, no storage, nothing. You got a problem then. With the volume we're talking, with the new units coming online, I think that'd be number one. Is to put a new force main. So far, you said you got old infrastructure that's back in the 70s. You got a force main that isn't much better. And that's your key to the whole project right there. That goes down, you're dead. I don't care what pumps you got in there, what size volume, what state, what wells, dry wells, right, as pumps. You're dead. Not pretty. I would be there first. I would get a brand new one in, use the one you've got right now. It's working, it's fine. Put the new one in alongside it, some other, right now, close enough so you don't disturb it. Get it all, get there, and then look at, or at the same time, look at your pumps. But at least gives you a whole different perspective on the pumps.
The pipe has a different useful life than the steel well structure, pumps and controls. Well, the problem is you've got a very unsafe condition, confined space entry that with a steel dry pit.
Well, I'm not saying that don't do that, I'm
Yeah,
saying,
okay.
oh, definitely, you need to do that.
But they don't need the additional capacity of the force main right now. I mean, I get into a lot of these around and I just like working in Colchester and what we're trying to do. You know, a lot of these communities kind of know how many buildings they're projecting each year, they know how much they've approved and then built in the last two, so looking at that kind of historical data. You gotta be careful not to overbuild because it uses more electricity, it's not very efficient. We need to maintain a certain velocity in that force main, so we kind of want to size it more appropriate for what your flows are now and what we're seeing over the next, 5 to 10 years. And I'm not saying that should be done at some point, but it's not needed now from a capacity standpoint,
So
so.
what you're saying from an engineering point of view is that if there's not the correct amount of flow, it's not efficient, it doesn't
That's
work well, and it could be detrimental to the whole system.
Yeah, you can get other issues.
I just agree with that. If you're talking friction loss, that's it,
Yeah.
6-inch, 8-inch, that's irrelevant.
Oh, it is irrelevant. There's a huge difference in the capacity of the pump and the minimum velocity needed
Oh,
between
yeah.
a 6 and an 8-inch
Oh, for
pipe.
sure,
An 8-inch pipe is not needed now from a size standpoint, capacity standpoint.
but it's not gonna be detrimental.
Sure it is, because you have to increase the pump to a certain size to get that 2.5 feet per second of velocity through there. And that capacity is not needed at this point in time.
So I think we've identified the initial issue, along with what has to be done after the fact. And going in that time period, those steps, I think that's the correct way to go. We do identify we need to have some issues to think about, but we are identifying those, but we need to focus on flow right now. So that's a good point, good point.
How does the process play out? You're gonna do engineering study next.
You know, this was the engineering.
That's your
study.
full.
Preliminary engineering, and so next we have to go through this qualification-based hiring process to pick an engineer to go from here to the end of the project. Then the design work will get done, you know, to go forward, and then bid documents. And then we'll, you know, then we'll be able to move forward, and along the way there, you know, we got the legal reviews, he talked about the permitting, you know, figuring out, are we really gonna use our sewer allocation funds? What does the state offer us? Is it, they offer some actual cash, and so we mix sewer allocation and subsidy from the state. They offer us some low interest loans, so we'd actually rather take a loan because we're using somebody else's money, and it's cheaper for us to keep our sewer allocation funds. So there'll be some decision making in there before we actually issue contracts as well. So those are the kind of next steps, but the very next step is within the next couple of weeks, we'll put a solicitation on the street for qualification-based hiring. And as you heard, that makes us eligible at the back end of that process to get half of the engineering money paid for by the state.
So after that phase of engineering gets you to the point of contract documents, so you're ready for bid, you got permits, you got easements, and everything's good to go. And then you just gotta, depending on how you wanna fund it, you gotta think about when you wanna do a bond or something.
If we need a bond.
If I might make a comment,
Yeah, please.
the reason this all came up was because I believe you went through this process before, and there's a lot of information that's not there. And if you want another engineering firm or two or three to figure this, that information needs to be made available.
It's on my website now.
You know.
That's why I pulled this solicitation, they set up top. And so the full study is on the website now, and when we reissue the solicitation, it will be referenced, there'll be a hyperlink to take people right to the full study. So it's on the news tab, but we don't have a place in our system for like bid documents and those sort of reference materials. Our website just doesn't have a location for that, so we put it in the news section. So, and like I said, then we put, that's also where we'll put the new solicitation, so they'll be right next to each other, but we'll still, in the solicitation itself, we'll put a hyperlink to the right place, so it takes people right to the study.
Good.
Anything else? Nope, thank you. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
David, you have far to go?
No, I live in the area. My mom's in the nursing home here. I'm from Northeast Kingdom originally, so up this way. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Okay, moving on to management update.
Great, Kevin, you're usually first, you wanna go?
Sure. Finally got that hole fixed in Portland Street, my ears quit ringing a little bit. We got the wet tap done on that new apartment building beside Maple Fields heading out of town. And we're waiting for ERG to show up and kill 3 big birds with 1 big stone, so we'll come on that. But no, pretty quiet.
How are the loons doing?
Loons, after all this rain we got, I hope they are doing well.
We've been generating up there, so much water we've been generating again after all these storms last week, so. Nice, yeah, good. Dave?
We've got some work that we're doing for customers that's picked up quite a bit. Again, I just wanna tip my hat to our apprentices. They've gone through their midterm exams, which is formatted as a rodeo, so they're actually in their field gear, they're climbing hooks, they're in the on the pole doing their different exercises according to what they learned. And Mike Larish, he's a 3rd-year apprentice. He took 3rd overall out of 100+ apprentices.
Nice.
And we were well represented again, so this is just a reflection on their skills and their dedication. And it reflects on who we're gonna have for employees here in the future. We started the infrastructure improvements on the underground electrical system by Jersey Heights for the 24 unit I don't know what you would call those, if those are condos or apartments, but all the foundation work you see there that's the electrical infrastructure is going in for that. It required an outage, for Jersey Heights. It all went very well. Any questions that you've got for me on some of this stuff, he's happy to answer. I think those are the highlights, though.
Right.
I have a question, but it's for Kevin. This Habitat for Humanity, are they paying the regular water and sewer hookup fees?
Yeah. Yeah, the first one that went in, they wanted to do multiple payments, and when I got time to get the money, I just said, do you guys want to do this every month, or you just want to write a check? So they wrote a check and cleared it up. They haven't approached us about doing a payment style for that thing, so.
So the first one's paid their hookup fees.
Yeah, they haven't approached
Because
us.
there was a thing at the selectmen meeting the other night, that they were asking to get the building permits and all the other permit fees waived. And, these things are gonna be privately owned, and yes, they have to stay in the trust, with Habitat for Humanity, but, I don't think the rest of the rate players should be subsidized.
They haven't approached us yet about this one, but that may be coming.
Well, if they approached me, I'd say no.
Yeah. We brought it up before the board for the last one, so.
Okay,
Good
good.
with it.
What's the big facility going in there of, Lake Elmore? The big steel
The garage.
Town garage.
Town garage.
Town garage.
Oh, yeah.
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 So you run the three-phase power all the way out there?
They asked us to give them an estimate for it, but they elected to go single phase.
Where does that end? At Greaves Hill? Three phase?
I'm
Where
sorry,
does the three phase end?
right at the Greaves Hill Road, kind of the end of the Elmore Village.
So.
So it's a long way up to the garage from there.
It would have been expensive, yeah,
It's almost a mile, isn't it?
probably.
Close. On pennies, I'll give you a bit of an update on the property appraisal, so Penny and I did go and meet, they had the not appeal session, but the informational session, so we went and asked questions about 4 properties, 3 of which have now been reduced. The 2, yeah, 2 were so small that they're ridiculous. They were trying to say that they were worth 60 grand, but they're unbuildable, like 3,000 square foot spots that used to have some sort of trim or something on them. So they quickly reduced those to having a value of like 5 grand. And then the other one is the property we've been talking about, that's landlocked over near Bishop Marshall. And the General Family Center, like, it's a landlocked property. They had it valued for, I forget, like 130 or 140 or some big number. That's been reduced way down now as well, since it has no access. The last one is Katie's Falls Hydro Station. That went from 118,000 appraised value to 1.2 million. And when we went in and asked the guy, so based on what? He said, well, you should have gotten a form you're supposed to fill out, but we didn't get no form. He said, well, we just put this number in knowing it would make you come see us. So we did. So basically, we're not appraised. A hydro station in the town process is not appraised based on the value of the property and equipment. It's appraised as a business. So we've submitted the generation records from the last 3 years at the going rate of power supply, and then all of our expenses for the last 3 years. So then they'll do that calculation, and I expect it'll come way much closer to 118 than 1.2 million, which will save us a ton of money on taxes. So anyway, that we still, even though we went to the informational, if the number we get back on that we don't like, we're fine with the other 3 properties now. If we don't like that, we can still appeal it. So we didn't give anything up by going to the information session. So I hope a lot of people went to them, because it sure paid off for us.
Can we still appeal?
We can still appeal if we
Because
don't
might
like
have done
them.
that to our houses too, just wait and see us show up and.
Maybe, I don't know. So, you have a question?
I think it was 2018, the town used to have an equipment tax.
Yeah.
And they did away with it.
Right.
And,
So that was based on just on revenues and expenses. No, ours are just
ours
on
is a business.
revenues and expenses, and that's what it is. So we'll see where that lands. the guy was like, your number's gonna come way down, but they have an expert firm that looks at these hydro numbers that
Okay.
we're gonna send it to somewhere in Maine. And so we gotta wait to get the number back, but, so that's where that's at, I know Penny would want you to know that. And on mine, a couple of them I wanted to just note, so you have historically only met once in each summer month. So I'm suggesting we do the third Wednesdays, only because the first Wednesday is July 5th, and I'm figuring you, after July 4th, you probably don't want to come in here. So I'm suggesting July 19th and August 16th, if that works for you, and that we not do the first Wednesday. Is that all right?
I'll make a motion to have.
We don't have to make any motion, I just want to make sure it's okay with you.
It's fine with me.
That's good.
All right, good.
So just speaking of that, I mean, we talked about the date, I mean, does Wednesdays work for everybody? I mean, we can go any night of the week, and I know we kind of got a routine, I just wanna make sure,
For me, it doesn't matter which night, it's always gonna be random.
but I
It's
mean,
always random, so.
Wednesdays still work for everybody? It's okay with me too, I just wanna make sure we haven't really talked about it, and hey.
I play golf every Wednesday, so, but I get a tea time, so I'm here by 5.
Okay, so you're
I
good.
might be a couple minutes late.
Slows you down out there?
What's that?
No one's slowing you down out there?
Some people do. Last week we had somebody jump in front of us because they were afraid it was gonna rain, and we didn't finish on time.
Thanks for letting us know. If we're ever worried about how you're gonna vote, we'll make sure we stack the golf course in front of you.
Yeah. I just thought I'd put that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I also want you to know that, I know that you've had interest in starting to move some property, so Kevin has got Arrowwood lined up to delineate the 3 lots that are left up at Trombley. So that should happen, I think, either late this month or early next month, we heard. Because the question is, if we sell them as they are, we're not gonna get much because it's not clear if they're buildable. If we delineate them, we might be able to create enough clarity that some of them are buildable, and then they'll be worth much more money when we put them on the market.
Wasn't there a problem with vernal pools up there?
Well, that's part of the wetland analysis, that's the delineation. they
So I
need to do.
mean, during the storm, probably be a good time to do that.
Yeah, well, they'll do their professional job, while we have Arrowwood, David has a little issue down near Stowe that. To pull a pole has we need a wetland delineation for, so we're gonna have Arrowwood do that while we're here, but mostly I want you to know.
Are they the same ones that did it last time?
I don't think Arrowwood is the one,
Okay.
but when we were talking to Tyler Mumley, because we were talking to him about some issues up there. And about the stormwater permit renewal, so we asked him like, who's doing this stuff well in town these days, and he said, Arrowwood's really inexpensive, they do well. So Kevin lined him
I
up.
would just recommend not using the same people who used last time.
I don't believe it is. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There's a tire rut up there, they classify it as a wetland.
So we'll see what happens, but I figured it was worth, I think the estimate was, it might cost us $700 or $1,000. And
Yeah.
if we double the value of even one of those lots because it becomes buildable, then.
I mean, the lot's not as big, but there is a buildable spot.
Well, not on every lot. Now, the way that they were originally mapped, only one of them.
Only one.
Of
Okay.
30. That's why we're gonna check.
Yeah.
So
So,
sort of being on-site septic,
yeah,
because we don't have sewer up there,
There's sewer part of the way up there, isn't there?
just up to,
Those condoms.
yeah,
From the town.
yeah, that goes up behind that new, the bank. Tractor supplies here.
Wasn't there some kind of deal that if you hooked into the sewer, you had to pay them back and for what it cost them to build it?
Up to Tractor Supply is the end of the line.
Okay.
Scott, you were getting on the vulnerability assessment stuff, maybe.
we're supposed to be next week on the cyber, we're supposed to get our test next week. So we'll see how we do on that. On that, you all have been asking us to take a look at sewer allocation and hook on fees, so we've got Aldrich under contract to do that. So they do this all the time. Once we have the water one, John is working on, we've never had a water ordinance. We have a sewer ordinance, as you know, we've never had a water ordinance. John's been working on it for years, it's like at 80%. You'd have to approve a water ordinance before you can have a connection fee on the water side. But we're getting the numbers of what it should cost, what the rate should be. So those should all be ready for the fall for you to update both sewer allocation and hook on fees for both water and sewer.
So will you figure in the pumping station upgrades of the
all
sewer?
those things.
Yeah, good.
That's the idea. Get them update, bring them to 2023, and I make sure that as new development comes on board, at least for the things we're responsible for, we'll be able to honestly tell the community, the developers are paying their fair share.
Mhm.
You know,
Because when was the last time they raised it? A long
a
time.
long time ago, I don't know, you know,
Like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I think.
so, and never on water, we don't have a connection fee on water.
What's happening with that brewery down on Portland Street?
So they're, I don't know if they're open or not, but they're gonna pump their waste to Montpelier. No wastewater, because they don't wanna get a pre-treatment permit from the state.
They're gonna put in the tank truck and haul
Yeah, and I don't know what the town will now do. Eric had been clear that there was not going to be a tank truck sitting in the town parking lot out behind that building where they wanna put it. So whether his successor is going to allow Mr. Mogler to put an 18-wheel tank truck out there or not, I don't know. So we'll see what happens. I suspect someday he'll come back and wanna talk to us again, and the unfortunate thing is, you know, the grant we got for rock art, like round 2's out right now. If Soulmate had just started working with us, they would have been eligible to get up to $200,000 to comply with their pre-treatment permit. It would have cost them nothing.
Does John know that?
I don't know if he knows it or not, because I didn't reach out to him because he's not eligible, because he hasn't applied. All you have to do is have applied for it. You don't even have to have it yet. And he could have been eligible to get 100% funding to do everything, to just drop it in our system. You know, but he chose a different path, so you live with your decision, right? So that's the update.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other business or?
Well, just a couple others. We are really, even since I wrote this, we're making good progress on the legal proceeding about getting access to replace the poles down in Stowe. We're pulling together injunctions. Our attorneys are doing that now, so by the fall, David can go in with his crew and replace the poles down there. So that's
Kind
going
of
on.
one property.
Then
one
That's
place down.
Adams property?
yeah. So, you know, there's a couple other properties we need to replace poles on, but, you know, David and Rusty have been walking those, and the neighbors have generally been friendly as they walk them, so we don't expect trouble on the other properties. So we're getting it all together. The attorneys are actually on it, so I just want you to know I've warned Stowe, because they are Stowe residents and Stowe customers, for electricity. It's just our transmission line goes across them, so I've just made sure they know, that, you know, she may scream it down, you know, and to just direct them back to us, so just. So
Can we get Stowe to help us in this fight?
They really can't do anything, particularly since, Mrs. Adams' husband is on the select board. A little problem, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Just a couple other quick things that weren't on the report that have happened since, so, today we filed a letter of intent with the Department of Energy. They have a solicitation out right now where you can get 30% of funds to improve dam safety. And since we have about $1 million, if we decide to keep the Green River Reservoir, there's about $1.5 million of dam safety improvements that need to happen there as a result of the new water quality permit if it stands. So the letter of intent doesn't require us to do a full application or to take the money or to do the project. But if you didn't file it, you can't do the full application by October. So we filed a $1.8 million project with about $550,000 of grant requests today on that, just so you're aware. So it at least gives us an opportunity. You all probably know, with all the new fanfare about the rail trail, I knew this was gonna happen. The encampment that would just never go away out behind Ross Nation on the rail trail out there on the property that we have. The police run people out of there every 2 weeks, and within 2 days, everyone's back. And so now that the rail trail's, you know, complete and the state's advertising it, V-Trans and the police and everybody else and us are getting calls all the time about drug deals going down, people strung out, people running out onto the rail trail after people, people afraid to use that part of the rail trail. So, I've started a dialogue with V-Trans. I've been clear with V-Trans that if they really want their rail trail to be popular in Morrisville, that they're gonna need to help us figure out how to fence that whole thing. It's a mile. So, you know, 150,000-ish.
So we
On
should
our
use that.
prop-
Is that north of the, when you go past the, Lost Nation, is that further north of that, or?
That corner near Hearthstone, that's what,
Okay, yeah, okay, on the right.
that whole.
So you're heading towards Johnson.
Yeah,
Which side of the road?
Left side.
It's on the left.
It's on the lake
Right
side.
around there.
Oh,
It's on the lake side.
Speaking of encampments, the fellow that panhandles down here across from the bank.
The homeless?
By the old gas station,
Yeah.
I regularly see him walking down B Street.
Yeah.
Towards the other hydro plant,
So
and I know they used to camp down there too.
we'll see, I've got a meeting tomorrow with the director of planning, V-Trans, and she's the person that puts the grants together, and I told her like, you know, if you guys want this to go away, like, we can't use ratepayer money to pay for this, and as a village, we don't have any other funds. So you guys do fencing all the time, you want permission to put a mile-long fence on our property, we'll give it to you. So, I don't know that they'll do it, but I've at least made the request, so you're aware of that,
Electric fence?
no, it'd be like put a 6 or 8 foot chain link, at least they gotta work to get over it. And if someone's going down the rail trail, they're not gonna feel like someone's gonna jump a 6 or 8 foot fence and get them.
Right.
Do we use that land for anything? No.
No,
Just the one substation.
yeah, Pratt site is there, but that has its
Oh, the
own
big-
enclosure.
Right there by the bus
One
station.
we don't use right now, but we're gonna have to remember in our plan for electrification, PLM has said we're gonna need to re-energize that place at some point, substation.
Do you think we should try to sell that land that we don't use to the state and they can make the right away one?
I'll definitely offer that to her too. We joked about that today. There's a little bit of width, which is what they're camping on. And then you said it's steep right down to the lake, Wicked Embankment. So there's only a sliver of land where they're camping, but it's for a whole mile. And so we can't control it. Everyone's like, why can't you do something? It's like, well, where are we gonna come up with 150, 200 grand to put a?
Well, you know, the other one's got all these old junk cars over the bank.
Yeah.
Maybe put some more junk cars down.
I just wanted you to be aware that as we expected, now attention is heightened. Because everyone's being told to use the rail trail.
Yeah.
And people are afraid to use that section.
Time down, people are out there.
And the last thing is, I finally do have a meeting on the books with A&R about Green River Reservoir next week. So it came out of the shadows and are ready to talk, so. Don't know how it will go, but at least it's happening.
I saw something on the news about A&R trying to take over, or it was like A&R and the PUC for dams, and they were doing dam safety analysis, and they, you know, I guess A&R does it 5 year, or 2 years, 3 years, and the PUC's only do 5, and they're trying to get away from PUC's owning dams.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. The towns of Plainfield and Marshfield have had it in for Green Mountain Power and that Marshfield Hydro Station for as long as I've lived in Vermont. About every 5 years, up like clockwork, those two towns stir things up and try to figure out what they can do to GMP. Which part of me jumps for joy with, and part of me says, why are you bothering them? I don't really know how this is gonna work, but I think A&R will say no. A&R, part of the reason they have told you no all the time, because they only have 2 people for 100 dams in Vermont. So they don't want another high hazard dam, but they don't have enough staff to take care of them. So Marshfield is a high hazard dam. So if they don't want ours, they're not gonna want Marshfield in terms of the responsibility to inspect it. So the PUC would love to get rid of it, because why do they want to be responsible for an inspection? It's not what they do. And they have no staff, right? So, well, I don't know how that will play out, but it's chapter 7 in the long saga between those 2 towns and GMP.
Okay.
There was a blur on the news yesterday about Washington Electric. The electrical company in Washington County.
Yep.
That they're gonna require them in their rates to have a low income rate, and the other rate payers to subsidize the low income rate.
Well, eventually that's gonna be required of everybody. This is the state doing social engineering.
Yeah. And that's,
And, Green Mountain Power already has it. The state's going after WEC next. VEPSA has been able to kind of push back a little bit, just because, we haven't had the bandwidth to deal with it. And the legislature actually had a bill that didn't get anywhere this year, but is gonna get attention next year to do what California did, which is to make your electric bill be means tested. So based on your income.
I mean, this is getting crazy.
Yeah.
People that are wealthy enough to put a big solar system in,
I know.
sell us power at inflated rates and make money. Now they're gonna ask the people in the middle to subsidize the people on the bottom.
So for the first time in a recent order, while the PUC didn't say they're ready to do anything about it, they actually wrote in an order that they understood the pinch that the munis have been arguing about, which is basically exactly what you said. We've been saying you're subsidizing the affluent, and now you're gonna subsidize the low income, and yet you're making us do all kinds of new expensive programs.
And then what happens
So the
if
middle
it's
class is
middle up?
gonna pay for everything, you know? And so what are you doing? They've actually, at least they've acknowledged the truth of that now. They haven't done anything about it yet, but they've acknowledged it's a problem. So to be continued. Yeah. So,
Okay, moving on to public comment, I don't see anybody out there. Next is executive session, which I would like to go into.
and that's based on 313A3 personnel and human resources.
Correct. And I would just like to have the trustees give that, and I would like to have you, so make a motion to go into a executive session.
I'll move the lead on the executive session.
I'll second it.
Motion been made, seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor going into executive session at 6:37, say aye.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Good night. All right, we can only hear for a minute. Oh, let me do this first. You don't need to record what we talk about.
I'll second it.
Motion made. All in favor coming out of executive session at 6:57, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. And now we have to do
Motion to adjourn.
no, we have a motion to approve what we discussed.
Okay.
For,
And a motion to approve the contents of the executive session.
I'll second
okay, motion made, seconded, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Motion to adjourn.
So the motion will be probably, let me just try to help, so this will help Linda write the motion to approve, compensation for the general manager.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah, just trying to make sure. Oh, you already did, and I just wanna let you know what I'm gonna have her write.
He's seconding my.
I'm seconding the motion to adjourn.
Motion made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks.
Yeah. What's happening in your world there, Carl? Went to a wedding this weekend.